Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Interlocking Loops Flosstube. It is early January 2020. Can you believe we made it to another year? It's hard for me to believe. I know it's been a little while since I've been here. Between the kids coming home and all the excitement over the holidays, it's finally starting to calm down a little bit. And while I've been totally enjoying having the kids home and that craziness of that routine, I'm ready to start getting back into normal, thinking about a little more about the future and some of the crafting. So if you would like to send me a message, you can get a hold of me through Instagram. I'm Interlocking Loops, and where in that forum you can see some of my projects, some of the knitting things I've talked about before, some of my finished punch needle that I will talk about today, as well as a cross stitch. And I think I even have a picture of my rag quilt that's finished. But welcome one and all today. Hopefully your Christmas went well and we're on to a new year with new hope for the future and maybe even a few goals with crafty things in mind. Let's start with things I have finished. Now, since it's been a little while since I was here, some of the things I started and finished have already been gifted and I no longer have those or have pictures of those. But one thing I did want to mention, I was doing a pattern by Michelle Palmer, Buffalo Check Santa. Michelle Palmer has an Etsy shop, and it's this one right here. And Buffalo Check is so popular right now. I made this one for my mother, and yes, it's just a pattern picture. You can check my Instagram for the actual picture of it, as well as on my Instagram is a picture of the one I made it from last year. So if you think you want to get into punch needle at all, check out Michelle Palmer's Etsy shop because she has some adorable patterns. By no means is that the only person that puts out great patterns that I like, but I found two years in a row that I really like, so you may want to start there. So that was a finished object. I did gift that for Christmas right before Christmas got finished, so whew, that was doing well. Let's talk about works in progress. Just to kind of recap from 2019. Hopefully this year you'll see these finished. I have Plum Street Sampler spring salt boxes. I'm working on the one in the lower portion of the picture. And I believe it's on size count Ada, coffee tea dyed. Ada, I love that blue. So that's coming along. That'll be one of the things I hope to get finished in 2020. So part of those are with the over dyed threads, most of what's called for. I have kind of a jumbled ring of them here. They look a little bit wonky, but taken one at a time, they straighten themselves out pretty well. So that's a work in progress. Let's see, what else do we have as works in progress? You remember from earlier in 2019, I started on Little House Needleworks Red House in Winter. If you remember, I talked about enjoying red houses and red barns, that I really have a weakness for both of those things. Well, here's Red House in Winter. Don't you love that red? Overdyed floss. Now, this is one of the times I feel like the overdyed floss really brings this building to life. And I don't remember if this is 14 or 16 count Ada, but it's off-white. I think it will show the red really well. And while I don't have a whole lot done on there, I am anxious to work on that this next year and get that finished. I see some of the floss tubers that have several projects that are works in progress that are not done. That makes me a little twitchy when I have very many that isn't finished. So let's see, another one, a Little House Needleworks. I think I must have started most of these during the month of May for Stitch Mania. I just didn't get a chance to get them finished before I needed to go on to some other things. Fresh Watermelon is the pattern. And as you would guess, the watermelon is the star of the show on lightly coffee tea dyed 16 count Ada. It looks like a fairly solid ivory from here, but it's actually not. So, all right. So those are the things I started earlier in 2019 that I did not get a chance to finish. Another thing, if you remember, I think I talked about this on the very last Flosstube, were a variety of Brenda Gervais patterns that I wanted to stitch. One of which is Jolly Happy Soul. It's kind of like Frosty the Snowman. Isn't that adorable? Alright, so I chose a fabric that's a little bit darker than the pattern. And I haven't even cut off the actual piece off of a long section this time. But I started with the words Frosty, and I've got some of the, what is maybe holly or a vine with some berries, and then a little bit of the snowman started. This will be the next thing I hope to get finished. I consider snowman, wintertime things. I think most of us do. While I'm still in the winter mood, I don't know how long that'll last. As those of you know that have been with me for a while, I find it difficult to stitch in a season that we're not currently in. And while January in Iowa usually means snowmen and wintry type things, for example, today it's 47 degrees outside. Okay, this is highly unusual. Oftentimes our highs may get to 30. We have no snow. We had a few snows at the end of October and early November and haven't had much since. The last few episodes I thought would be snow came as rain. And in the next 10-day forecast, there's a couple more episodes of rain, but it isn't snow. So it's starting to look and feel a little bit more like spring, which is way too soon to be thinking about that. But that makes me start going from, thinking about winter to start flipping toward thinking a little bit about spring. And so let's hope I can get this snowman done. So I did finish my Stitch 9 that I talked about. The very first when my Flosstube channel had started, the Stitch 9 projects, I did finish all of those. Speaking of that, the one I talked about a few times, which was one of my perhaps biggest challenges of the whole year, was my quilt. And I have it folded now to make it slightly easier to manage. But my first rag quilt was finished. So navy, the medium blue, and the white. The back side is all white, and the middle layer is, I think it's soft and warm, soft and gentle batting. That's kind of an ivory color. So I did finish that up, and I'm very happy to have that finished. That was the last thing on my Stitch 9 I needed to get done for last year. And of all the different goals and resolutions I made a year ago, that's the one and only one I actually kept. So I'm still thinking of what Stitch 9 things would I like to do this year. I've been so happy having the kids home that I haven't done as much stitching as I normally would have, just because I've just enjoyed being home with them. We've been having kind of movie night most nights, and I love it all. I wish I could keep my kids here longer, but it won't be very long before one will be back in grad school out of state, and one will be up in undergrad again. So I'm kind of hanging on and savoring every minute with those kids. It's meant a lot of cooking and a lot of dirty dishes every day, but I wouldn't trade a second of it. But to go on about things I might want to do in the next year that I have plans to do, and I know I've talked about some of these in the past. There's another Brenda Gervais pattern. I hope to get this started very soon. It's Candy Cane Wishes. I'll take it out of the plastic so it doesn't glare so much. Check that snowman out. I love the red cardinals too. The fabric I have for that at this point I'm planning on using, is from Luminous Fiber Arts Jolly Green. It's a fat quarter, Ada, 16 count. Oh, it doesn't really come off too green here in this picture, but it is. hold it up against a white, you can kind of see it's got more green to it than it really looks like. So I think that may be nice. I'm using a lot of overdyed flosses that are called for. I have that pretty much kitted up. It's just a matter of I'd like to get this, my other one finished, this other Brenda Gervais snowman finished before I start this one. Because I planned last year when I bought several of these patterns that I knew this winter I wanted to work on them. And since it never fails, by the time mid-November turns around and it's here, when I'd like to start stitching on some of those, I'm finishing up Christmas projects for people. So that's never going to change. So another one that I want to do is Little House Needleworks Winter ABCs. And I have all 4 of the ones in the series. And while I've gone through several different fabric choices, sorry for the extra motion. What I did find out is 16 count Icon Ada fabric from Picture This Plus. And it's not exactly the green, but it's kind of a blue-green. It's reading a little more blue there than it is, but it's really pretty that I think would look really nice on it. So I have most of the colors kitted up for that as well. It's a combination of DMC and specialty flosses. I'm trying to keep everything together. I have kind of a wild pile here in front of me. Another one that I want to start, just because it kind of melds a couple of my crafts together, is Sweater Weather by October House. And it'll be all out of DMC. And why do I like that? Because of the sweater patterns. It's also in plastic, so I'm going to try to remove it from the plastic. I think I talked about this earlier last year. I thought maybe I'd get it started sooner. Look at those little sweaters. And the flosses are DMCs. So I have those on a floss ring all ready to roll. So looking forward to starting that one. Hopefully I can get that started before it warms up for sure for spring. Another one that's a little bit seasonal is the Square Dance patterns. I started a few of these by Heart and Hand last year. And if you've been a watcher for a while, the Valentine's one, the February one I did last year, I would like to do the January one. These don't take real long. And then I have not done March either. So, and all those I've done on 16 count. I still don't have the last 3 patterns in the series, but they're on my wish list on 1, 2, 3 stitch. So, and part of those are DMC and part of those are overdyed flosses. It doesn't look like the January one really needs a lot of overdyed flosses. Those could be pretty good, pretty well done, I think, with DMC flosses. So all right, let's see. You'll see where my head has been a little bit in trying to get some of these things done that are seasonal for right now or for Christmas that I did not get done that I was hoped I would get started. And I'm going to add these maybe to the list of things I'd like to get done because I think these look so cute. Finished the Little House Needleworks gingerbread cookie. Hope to have that finished. I haven't put in a hoop yet. I don't have any stitches done on it whatsoever, but I'm very close to getting that done. I just really need about 2 more weeks of vacation to get a whole lot of stuff done. Another one by Little House Needleworks. They have some of the cutest patterns. Peppermint Twist. Hope to have that done. This would be a nice little pillow in a tobacco bowl with some decoration for next year that I hope to get done. A couple other things are on my top list. Now it's entirely possible that when warm weather comes around, maybe March or April, I totally scrap the bulk of these plans, but we'll see. If you remember in the past, I've done some Brenda Gervais. This is the Little House Needleworks and Brenda Gervais show, pretty much. The word plays, I would like to do the December word play. I have not even picked out the fabric. But I've done 3 or 4 of these word plays, and I'd like to get a few more done this year. And then another one that I would like to do is Snowbirds by Brenda Gervais. I already have the Fancy Floss and some of the DMC already together for it. This was one of the other ones I'd hoped to get done over winter. This may be something that doesn't get started until next fall, though. Mr. and Mrs. Snowman, aren't they cute? And that's Snowbirds. And I think I'm going to do that on some colored fabric. I looked at a couple different ones, of which they're all Ada. So here's the 3 colors I've kind of been looking at. Kind of a green, a lighter blue, and something a little bit darker blue. For that, I think any of those could work. I think the color of the snowman would pop a little bit more on something that had a little bit more color to it. So that's kind of why I'm most interested in that. So those are up for consideration. Alright, let's see. Another thing, the glitter houses. I showed you guys earlier in the year. The fabric that I purchased for these. I still wouldn't mind finding some opalescent Ada. A light gray to light blue. If anybody has any ideas on where I could find a fairly sizable piece, I would like it at least 16 count. It could be an 18 count, but 16 count I think is what my ideal would be. What I currently have for that is 16 count Ada, touch of gray. Alright, so I'm going to do these. My plan is all in one. And I have the whole set of them. It looks like a darker gray is showing up than what it really is on here. It's a nice, really light gray. I have the whole set. I have all the flosses. I'm kind of holding out, I don't know, if I could find some opalescent 16 count, if I could just get the hang of linen, maybe that'll be this year I can finally do that. And then I can find some opalescent sparkly linen pretty easily. So those are things I'm hoping to work on in 2020. I have bought some more fabric. I said years ago I wasn't going to quilt. It's too hard to quilt. It looks too complicated. I didn't want to get that into quilting. Well, guess what? I made my first one. I'm going to make another one, another Red Quilt book. And I bought some. Part of my Christmas present for my parents was quilting stuff that I requested. And I have 2 more books that I got the year before for Christmas. Quilt As You Go Made Vintage and Quilt As You Go Made Modern. That I think these could become helpful in my next quilt of a different style. I don't know. There's a variety of things I said I would never do. That was one of them. I also said I would never knit any sweaters because it looked too hard. Well, I'm wearing one that I knit. It's color work. It's not hard. It's 1 stitch at a time, exactly like cross stitch. You're just playing with, instead of threads, you're playing with thicker fibers, some yarns. Crazy. You just never know what's going to happen. Well, that's it for this episode. It is short and sweet. I hope to get around and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about some of the quilting fabrics and some things that I've accumulated between the sales and Christmas and some of the other hobby things that I was given. And we can talk a little bit more about how I may be able to work some of those into this next year. If any of you are doing a special stitching goals or resolutions, please go ahead and set that comment down below. If you want to keep up with what I'm doing this year, be sure to hit the subscribe button. And if you like this video, go ahead and push the like button. But I hope to have another video out soon about some of those other things that maybe I didn't get a chance to tell you about on today's episode that have gone on over the last few weeks. And hopefully everybody's been healthy and are as happy at your home as I am at mine. Until next time, happy crafting. Bye-bye.